Hi, my loves. I trust you are doing amazing. And this is a day the Lord has made. We should rejoice and be super duper glad in it. So, today I'm going to be sharing with us, right, signs that you have come into contact with or you have met a counterfeit. Right? In one of the previous prophetic messages that the Lord God Almighty gave to us on this platform, He was highlighting the fact that counterfeits have been released in this season, right? Especially for those of God's people or children that are about to enter into their God ordained marriages. These counterfeits are coming in as what? Distractions. However, there's a few revelations and a few insights that the good Lord Almighty gave to me to share with us so that we can be able to fish out a counterfeit. So that whenever you come into contact with one, you are going to be able to know that no, this is a counterfeit, right? Yes, most of the time, counterfeits, when keen attention is not paid to them, would be mistaken for what is original, would be mistaken for whom God has actually sent, right? When in actual reality, they are being sent by the enemy to distract and also keep you out of alignment, thus resist you from being able to see who God has originally or has ordained for you to meet as a God ordained person, right? So first and foremost, before I even get into the signs indicating the fact that you may have come into contact with a counterfeit, we are going to be looking at what a counterfeit means, right? So this is actually coming from the Webster's New World Dictionary, right? So a counterfeit is an imitation of something genuine or so as to deceive, basically, right? And then it is also forgery. It is also to make an imitation of something. So it can be money, it can be a spouse. This is specifically what we are delving into, so we are going to use the spouse, or the second or the third definition or simile, or how should I even say, the synonym that the Webster's dictionary gave to us is to pretend, right? So this in a nutshell explains to us or gives us a brief understanding of what a counterfeit is. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing with us signs. Before I even get into the signs, counterfeits are people, released by the kingdom of darkness, right, to distract and to also keep us as God's people out of divine alignment. Divine alignment is very important when it comes to the manifestation of God's promises in our lives, especially when it comes to God ordained marriages. Because when we are found in the wrong place at the right time, we would miss what God has ordained for us to have, right? So it is very important for us to be discerning. However, these signs are going to be able to help us know if we have come into contact with one. So sign number one is that, in fact, the underlying factor of a counterfeit is this, right? Normally, counterfeits usually come in first and foremost trying to tell you that they would marry you. When we are talking about or we are dealing with counterfeit persons, especially in the season of marital breakthroughs, they usually pop up with "I want to marry you" interest just at once. Right? They would come asking, "Oh, are you married? If you're not married, I would like to marry you." They would come with comments like, "Oh, I like how you are, perhaps. I like how modest you are. I like how well behaved you are. I like how well mannered you are. You make me so happy," and so on and so forth. Most of the time, counterfeits are also what even makes it easy for these counterfeits to be able to penetrate is because love spells are attached to these counterfeits. They are coming, right? Because they are sent by the enemy, the love spells are attached. So there would be sudden feelings that would be attached to these people, to these persons, right? Sign number two that you are dealing with the counterfeits is how you suddenly, all of a sudden, begin to lose affection or interest in whomever God has ordained for you to be with. This is specifically going to be of great help to those of you, or if you are the type of person that the Lord has already shown you who your God ordained person is. Whenever you come into contact with a counterfeit, right, you would suddenly lose affection, interest, and love for your God ordained person. You would suddenly begin to resent them and suddenly begin to recall all the bad things that they used to do or they maybe had done to you, right? There would be an iota, or there would be some level of offense and resentment towards them. And that is also a strategy of the enemy as well. The enemy will begin to remind you of all their flaws, when in actual reality, before you even came into contact with the counterfeit, you did not even pay attention to these flaws, right? Love covers multitude of sins. You love them unconditionally despite their flaws, but once the counterfeit came in, all of a sudden you are beginning to remember all their flaws. All of a sudden it feels like you can't tolerate them anymore. All of a sudden it feels like you don't like them. You don't even want to be with them anymore, right? So another sign, right? Another sign also indicating the fact that you have come into contact with a counterfeit is that, you know, these counterfeits usually come perfect. They come like everything that you want in a God ordained person, right? They come, perhaps it is your interest or the type of person that you may have prayed to God about that you want is a patient person, right? A loving person, a prayerful person, and so on and so forth. So these counterfeits will usually come presenting themselves as this. And most of the time, these counterfeits, because they're also people released by the kingdom of darkness with specific demonic spirit, like the spirit of Jezebel, which is the spirit of seduction, you know, they would present themselves as what they are not, to manipulate you or to buy you into believing that they are authentic, right? But most of the time, you know, as time goes forward, the veil begins to, or even the cover up begins to fall, and then their true identity gets exposed. They usually come as what you want. Why? Because they usually carry the spirit of seduction, and because they are people sent by the kingdom of darkness, the enemy would definitely try to send the people exactly how you want, when you want it. Right? Why? Because before the enemy usually unleashes an attack, he does some level of surveillance, he does some level of investigation before he unleashes an attack. And so most of the time, people like this present themselves as perfect, exactly everything that you ever wanted in a God ordained person, everything that you ever wanted in a God ordained wife or husband, right? And usually these types of people, like I said, as time goes forward, the veil is going to fall off. You are going to see them for who they truly are, but it's going to be a matter of time when the love spell is broken. So, you know, even it is very advisable that after finding or discovering the fact that these signs are, you know, correlating to what you have come into contact, the person you've come into contact with, and you are suddenly beginning to have feelings for them, you have to pray and break every love spell that has been made to make you have feelings for that individual, right? Continue to the rest of the signs. Most of God's people have experienced a delay in the manifestation of their God ordained marriages because of the fact that counterfeits usually get sent before the breakthrough. And usually before the breakthrough, there is this tiredness, there's this feeling of, I've kept hoping, I've kept trusting, I've kept believing, and still nothing is happening. And so that in that state of weariness is when vulnerability comes in, and then the enemy sends in these counterfeits, right? And then, basically, okay. So another sign also indicating, right, I had to jot them down exactly how the Holy Spirit gave to me. So another sign also indicating that you have come into contact with a counterfeit, right, is that it's based on the circumstance in which you met them. You know, perhaps you might have met these counterfeits through, it might be a friend to who you are in a relationship with currently. That person may have done a groundwork in investigating your likes and dislikes and comes presenting themselves as everything that the person that you are in a relationship with, whom is actually God ordained for you, is not. So perhaps that person may be impatient, Impatience may be the person's weakness or flaw, but then that person that may be a mutual friend or be a friend, they are coming in as patient because they have realized that what you struggle with is dealing with an impatient person. So they come and they observe the weaknesses of who you're in a relationship with, who is God ordained for you, and then presents themselves as the direct opposite. So it would look like, this is heavenly, this is so good to be true, this is exactly what I want in a God ordained person. But believe you me, it is all what? Deception. It is all what? Deception. Most of the time, right? How you also know that you have come into contact with a counterfeit is the fact that the foundation is just not right. It's just not connecting you with God or things of God. It's everything that reroutes you out of God. Like anytime you're around them, the need or the desire to fornicate comes in. The need to want to do everything that God don't want you to do comes in. That is the enemy trying to use them to pull you down, trying to use them to draw you back, trying to use them to make you prayerless, to make you lukewarm, and so on and so forth, right? Another sign is that at the very moment when you're about to make a life-changing decision, the thoughts of these people come up. Why? Because most of the time these people might be inhabited by the Python spirit, which is a monitoring spirit, right, which preys on an individual and looks for loopholes like vulnerability and so on and so forth, and then boom, they snoop in. And then when they snoop in, right, in those particular times, that is when they are able to catch you off guard and then get you to slip, get you to fall into maybe the trap of fornication. And most of the time these things can be a hindrance, a resistance to you being with who God has originally ordained for you to be with. Mind you, most of the time when counterfeits are also sent, right, the enemy ensures that other envoys are around as monitoring agents, right, to ensure that whomever God has originally ordained for you to be with would not want to be with you after discovering how maybe you slipped or you fell with that counterfeit person. It is a teamed up demonic operation when it comes to counterfeits, because the kingdom of darkness is against love, it's against God ordained marriages, right? So it is very important to pay keen attention to this specific sign. Okay, another sign too is the moment when you are in purpose, as in doing the things which the Lord has called you to do. Immediately the thoughts of these people come in. Maybe a call from them comes in, a text message comes from them. It's like they always come in soon as you're about to do something pertaining to your destiny, something pertaining to your purpose, something pertaining to your life. That is when these people come in. That is why they are distractions, right? And so most of the time the enemy may use them to delay, may use them to cause resistances, bring chaos, to dry down your walk with God, your prayer life, and so on and so forth, right? So it is very, 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 very important. The enemy cometh not but to steal, kill, and to destroy. And so this kingdom, or this counterfeit agenda by the kingdom of darkness, is to steal your God ordained marriage, is to steal your time, is to steal your purpose, is to steal the things which the Lord has ordained for you in a particular season, right? It is also to steal a lot, basically, right? And to kill, basically, also to kill your dreams and to also destroy things which the Lord has ordained for you to do in specific seasons, right? So I believe that these signs are going to be very helpful for you to be able to fish out counterfeit persons, counterfeit spouses, right? So I love you. I'll see you the next time the good Lord Almighty releases me with another prophetic insight for us, right? Goodbye.